All right, I'm really excited. This is something that's been cooking for like 2 years. I don't know, more than that. We're very excited for the vision that we're going to do. Now, we are called Innovate Church, so I'll preface this with we're going to do things a little different, and it's going to be a little challenging maybe to traditions or wait, why like that, or how can you do it like that? And I promise you we'll explain everything, but just have an open mind as we go into this is all I'm saying. You know, because you do attend Innovate Church. That name is intentional. It was for a reason. All right, so we're just going to jump into it. I'm going to speak specifically. There was a revival that happened in the 19th century. All right, for the longest time, I thought the 19th century meant the 1900s. Did anyone else ever think that? I'm alone. Thank you, Ryan. Even if that was a pity, you know. Yeah, I was like 19th century. That makes sense, the 1900s, but for whatever reason, it's the one before it. So in the 1800s, so there's no confusion, okay, in the 1800s, there's a great revival that happened. All right, like, for example, the great preacher Moody, who was the greatest evangelist of this time, came out of this time period, okay? There was a huge time for the church, but what's so unique about this time period in the church was its social activism that happened in society. It was not about just getting souls. It was about the souls that were saved going out and loving people and helping people through social reform and social help. That's what it was all about. And there's three significant, you'll recognize these organizations that came out of it. And I'm just going to share just a few of them. This is in 1821. George Williams was a sales assistant in a department store. He and 11 other people got together to do a Bible study. And their whole purpose was to invite men to get off the streets after schools and after things like that so they wouldn't get into trouble. And they said, come, let's study the Bible. All right? It was called the Young Men's Christian Association, which became the YMCA. Yeah, YMCA, we can do the dance. That started with 11 people. We have more than 11 people in here, I think. Okay, so that started with 11 people doing a Bible study. And that was birthed out of this movement that happened in this church. This revival that happened in the church inspired these men to do this. All right, that's the YMCA. Another one, in 1896, the Volunteers of America. Has anyone ever heard of them? They're one of the largest volunteer organizations they're one of the largest, charities in the United States for the last 50 years. I mean, they're huge. It's a volunteer movement, and they're the guys who first innovated the system for halfway houses for released prisoners. That was a Christian organization that started that, and they saw these needs in the community. Volunteers would go and live in poverty-driven neighborhoods to go and help people. All right, that became, like I said, the Volunteers of America, and today they have 16,000 employees working and helping in the United States. 16,000. This was started in 1896. They help 1.3 million people in the U.S. today. And the last one, my favorite. This guy's a personal hero. Look up a picture. I should have brought a picture. I hope I look like him when I'm older. He's like a wizened Gandalf, like a Christian Gandalf. It's kind of how he looks like. He looks like a Christian Gandalf. And he's really cool. All right, his name is William Booth. Anybody know who William Booth is? William Booth, in 1852, he was a preacher, and he decided, this is what the website says, they set aside their conventional church methods to see the people where they lived and toiled on the streets. This socially conscious work was aggressive and innovative, going where few churches were willing or able to venture. This was the man who created the Salvation Army, which again is one of the biggest charities and nonprofits in the world since he started. Since then, just in 2017, they opened 461 shelters for the homeless. They have 216 addiction programs. They opened 235 children homes. And they're in over 50 countries. That was just last year. That's not to tell all the work they've been doing since then. All right? That's the Salvation Army. These guys went out and reached people where they were at instead of saying, come to where we're at. They said, we're going to help meet needs outside of the church instead of you just coming to the church. And that's what this movement is about. All of these nonprofits, this is crazy, in the 1800s remain some of the top 10 nonprofits in the United States every year. That is insane. Now I challenge you to tell me a church that was started in the 1800s that is as popular and as increasing in influence as those organizations. You can't. You can't. There's some schools, some ministries, some things like that, but it's a church like that had that kind of development over 100 years and more, that is reaching more people than they did when they started. That's just unheard of. And all of those three organizations came from one revival. Now, when we think of revival in the church histories, we think of the amount of souls that were saved and the amount of things. This is a revival that we believe God is really wanting to push and come for in the United States. We believe there's going to be a social revival. We believe there's a hunger for even believers to get out there and to do something. To not just go to church, but go do church. Do you get what I'm saying? When people say, oh, I go to church, what does that mean? I go and listen to a man preach on Sundays for an hour and a half. That's what that means. That's all that means. Where do you go listen to a person talk to you for an hour and a half? Well, I go to this building. That's what going to church means. And it's taken on that context. But what if it meant something different? What if we changed the context of what that meant? Yeah, I go to this building and then I go help in that building. Yeah, I come to this church and then I go serve in that nonprofit in my community. What if going to church was two-sided and not just going to receive, but actually going to help? And that's what was at the heart of this revival and inspired all of these nonprofits who are still going today. That's what we believe is coming. And that's in Josh and I's heart. To not just go to church, but go do church. We are all called to be the church. It's not just Josh and I. It's not just the people who get to preach. And we're only doing half of our job if we stay inside the building. Do you get what I'm saying? We're only doing half the job. I preached this message a long time ago, this part, and it was a question that God asked me a long time ago, and it really challenged me, and it got me motivated into volunteering and helping. And it was, if you left Fort Worth, would anybody know? Would anybody care that needed help? And where it said, if you left Fort Worth, would the devil know? Would he care? Would he throw a party? Thank God that guy's out of Fort Worth. Or would he not even, you wouldn't even be on his radar? Think about that. The devil knew when Jesus came around because he helped a lot of people. But if you left Fort Worth today, would the devil even know? And would the people in need even know? It's a challenge, right? And it challenged me. Like I said, it challenged me, and it changed the way I thought about everything. I said, yes, Lord, I'm going to get out there. The moment I leave Fort Worth, the devil's going to throw a big party because finally that guy's gone. You know what I'm saying? That's the attitude we need to have as the church, and that's what we're trying to build here. This kind of nonprofit, think about the impact they've had over 100 years. That's absolutely incredible. Just those three. There's more that came out of this movement. Orphanages, all these things that you can imagine. And these weren't just religious things. These are, I'm going to feed the homeless. I'm going to go to give nursing care. I'm going to go help. Like, there's just so many things that aren't churchy like we think of. And they happen outside. Right? It happened outside. And that was the heart of these movements. And we believe, like I said, that this is coming again and that God is very much wanting this to push. Now, is this an idea that's on trend? Okay, would this actually work into today's society? I would say it kind of has to because we have a bad trend going right now. So if you look at the first statistic, these are millennials in the church. Only 2 in 10 Americans under 30 believe attending a church is important or worthwhile. That's terrible. 59% of millennials raised in a church have dropped out. 35% of millennials have an anti-church stance, believing the church does more harm than good. How in the world do we get to that statistic? That the church does more harm than good. That's unbelievable. But this is what a lot of people believe, especially millennials. And they are the least likely age group of anyone to attend church by far. Guess what comes after us and the next generation and the next generation? The church is experiencing these growing pains because it's not satisfying the needs of the next group. It's not. And if we don't do something about it, the church is going to continue to increase in these statistics instead of the other way around. It's just the problem. We've gotten so far, and that's good. And now Josh and I see, God, what is the answer for the next generations? What is the answer for the next push? And then we see that. If we can go to the next slide. These are different statistics for millennials. 84% of millennials give to charity on annual average of 481 across 3 organizations. That's a lot of giving. I mean, those percentages are really high for millennials. They make up the largest group of givers, and 47% of millennials gave through an organization's website. And this was just in 2016. It's only increased. So they're not going to church, but they are giving. They aren't going to church, but they are cause-driven. They aren't going to church, but they want to do good. The same group who said, the church does more harm than good is the group who wants to do good. You get what I'm saying? We're starting to put together the pieces. All right, this is the next one. This is Gen X. They come after millennials, all right? This is even younger. 49% of Gen Xers donors are enrolled in a monthly giving program. 45% of them donate to crowdfunding campaigns. 64 volunteer locally, and 8% internationally. That statistic alone is insane. For a whole generation, 64% volunteer. That is crazy and puts most of our churches to shame, let's be honest. Just these young ones, they're getting out there. They're getting it. Over half of them are volunteering locally and internationally. 56% attend fundraising events. If you had 56% of the Gen Xers attending church, we wouldn't be talking. Come on. Like, if the stats was 56% of the Gen Xers are coming to your church today, we wouldn't be talking about this, but they're not. But what are they attending? Crowdfunding, fundraising events. Gen Xers are the most likely to fundraise on behalf of a cause, make a pledge, or volunteer their time. So obviously, how we're doing it works for a lot of people, and it's working, and it is. And I'm not in any way throughout this entire process bashing the church or whatever. That's not my goal at all. But as we pray and seek God, we say, okay, we have to build for the future. We have to build for after me. We have to build for the next people. We can't just keep the people that we have going. You know what I mean? Like, people get stuck in this idea of we just can't kind of maintain. But what about all the people that we're losing? So the statistics say they're not going to church, but they are doing cause-driven things. These young people, man, these young generations want to make a difference. They want to do something. Do you notice in stores how many brands of clothes now? If you buy a shirt, we'll give one to a kid in Africa. That's becoming way more popular. It's now your glasses. I can give a kid in Africa a wardrobe just by going shopping at the mall. That's pretty cool. Like, when can you used to do that before? But why is that so popular? Because I will go to your brand because you're helping someone as opposed to that guy's brand because they're not. You see the rise in it. Even businesses are starting to do more charity-wise and giving-wise. They're starting to do more. Why? Because people want to make a difference. I don't want to just go to church. I want to go and make a difference. And if you're telling me your church actually makes a difference, guess what all of these generations are going to do? They're going to show up. Why? Because you actually make a difference. Why are they going to pick your brand over the other one? Because these guys do something. Do you get what I'm saying? There is a great gap there, and we believe that God is giving a strategy to meet this demand, to meet this need, and to make these changes that are going to help bring in even younger generations and experience church. And that's not at the cost of preaching, our religious beliefs or anything. Of course not. But it isn't something that we can ignore or neglect. Because if we continue to do it, these people are going to go 56% attend fundraising events over at church. What if you didn't have to choose? That's all we're saying. What if you didn't have to choose? What if your church functioned in such a way that it could meet these needs? Interesting statistics, right? Obviously, the church has to make a difference. And so that's where we come in, okay? Now, we don't have the logo up yet. We will. It's in design right now. But we will be creating, all right, an interdenominational. That just means open to any church, any denomination. It doesn't matter. Interdenominational charity called the Church At. Now, it's not up there. Should have put it up there now I think about it. But it's spelled. I'm going to just spell it for you. The, T-H-E. It's all lowercase, so it looks cool. Then I'm going to go uppercase on the church. Okay, so I'm painting a picture for you. All right, so then you got church. C-H-R-C-H. Something is missing when you spell church like that. It's the letter U, right? C-H-R-C-H. Sarah's got a confused face. Church is spelled usually with the U. We just took it out cleverly. Why? Because this is an organization and a charity committed to getting you active outside of the church. Clever, right? That's very visual. You'd have to really see it to appreciate it, but it's quite genius. I'm not going to lie. It's going to really, that's catchy. I get it. It's all about getting you active outside of the church, not just in the church. So it's called the Church At. The Church At is going to be a charity that's, like I said, interdenominational, which means it's not limited to Innovate Church. That means the church down the street, all the Christians could be a part of it, okay? But it's not just about raising money, and this is where it's going to really set ourselves apart. We'll be one of the only charities, if not the only charity, that raises money through volunteered hours, and that's in accordance with our beliefs. Last year, if you didn't know this, I didn't know this, blew my mind. Last year, they estimated the value of one volunteered hour to a nonprofit in the city. So let's say the homeless shelter on Lancaster. If I went and volunteered there, okay. One volunteered hour nationally in the United States was worth $24.60. Did you know that your volunteered hour is worth $24.60? Let's just round that up to 25 because that sounds better. One volunteered hour is worth $25. So if I go volunteer and I feed the homeless for an hour, that's as if equatable that I donated $25. What? Just by volunteering? Just by volunteering. So let's play this out. If I volunteer, math time, if I volunteer once a week for a year, once a week for a year, $25, I'm going to raise $1,200 in a year I donated without spending $1. I mean, that's crazy. I didn't know that. That is crazy to me. If I ask all of you to raise $1,200 out of your pocket and donate this year $1,200, how many are you raising your hand real fast? How about $1? You know, like, what's the thing where you give a cup of coffee for every cup of coffee? You could just, like, if we're trying to get everybody to raise $1,200 and donate this year, you'd be, no, thank you. That's hard to do. I mean, it'd be great. Yeah, that's great if you can do that. But for the average person, giving $1,200 to local charities to make them better is not going to happen. But what if I told you you could raise that money simply through volunteer hours? That is crazy. And then if you get 100 people to do it every week for an hour, crazy. You would raise $120,000 donated to your local city to make it better. That is actual, measurable impact and change that you can do in a city. It wouldn't feel too bad to look back at the end of the year and say, man, I donated $1,200. You know, that's a pretty cool accomplishment that you can do, that we can do together. And the more people you get volunteering, the bigger the impact you can have. Are you following me here? 1 hour, $25. That's a message that needs to get out there, and that's what we're going to get out there. Because let me tell you the potential. Let's go to the next statistics. This is just for DFW, okay? Just for DFW last year. 1 billion, I'll just say over a billion, you can read that. Over 1 billion volunteers contributed 175.6 million hours of service. That's a lot. This is just DFW, okay? 27.3 of the residents volunteered. We were 32nd among all the cities. DFW, that's not terrible. I mean, 32nd. All right, we're 32nd. The volunteer service worth, like I said, $25, 1 hour. The worth of that number is $4.2 billion just in Fort Worth. So the volunteer equatable hours, $4.2 billion in Fort Worth. And that is from about a quarter of the residents volunteering. That's it. A quarter of the people volunteering produce $4.2 billion in volunteer service. That is one city of a quarter of the population only. Imagine if you got that up. Imagine what you could do with just one city, a quarter of the population. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. So look at remember the 4.2 billion, all right? Let me show you, let's go to the next one. These are the statistics last year of the biggest charities. Salvation Army, last year rose $4.3 billion. St. Jude's, 2 point. Boys and Girls Club, 2. YMCA, 7. Goodwill, 5. That's how much the biggest charities in the United States are raising as of last year. All right? And there's other on that list, but these are top 10. This is how much they're raising. Now let's say Fort Worth, just in that quarter, just in that 25%, that number we saw, 4.2 billion. Just Fort Worth, if all of those people belonged to one organization, would be raising more than the biggest charities. Do you get that? That's crazy. That is crazy to me. One city, just a quarter of the people, could be the biggest charity, one of the biggest charities in the United States, through volunteered hours. And let me tell you why that's important, because that's what the Bible says to do. We're not just giving money. We're not just writing checks. We're not just giving a monthly subscription. We're actually going out and loving on people and preaching the gospel and reaching them where they're at like Jesus did. Those volunteer hours are so much worth more than that. You get what I'm saying? They're worth way more than that when I'm actually meeting hands-on with people. And I'm praying, I'm telling you, you know about Jesus? You want to come to my church? Man, this value is not even 25. But one city at a quarter of the people could be the biggest charity in the United States easily. So let's bring that big scale. What if we got 5% of every big city? We would be the biggest, the church at would be the biggest charity in the United States. And it's not even that hard. Let me give you a secret. There's a lot of churches and organizations that are already out there doing good work. But this is my organization, this is your organization, this is yours. What if we said, hey, let's just team up. To high five, you're in. Let's connect the dots here. Let's become the church at Texas. What if all the churches actually work together for once to do something? Wouldn't that be cool? What if we actually, oh, you're Baptist, oh, I'm this. It doesn't matter. Do you got poor people in your city? Yeah, so do I. What do they need? Food? I got food. It's not hard. I don't care about your doctrinal beliefs, and neither does the guy who's starving on the street. They need food. They don't need your doctrine and why yours is better than the other guys. They need food and they need Jesus. It's not hard. And so if we united around this and we became the church at Texas, this was what it would say, the church at Texas, meaning all of the churches. You know, God spoke to me that name, the church at. Man, when I was like 16, he gave me that idea, the church at. And this idea of what if, like Paul wrote letters, the church at Ephesus, the church at Rome, the church at these places. It wasn't, okay, to Pastor Paul's church in the first assembly and then to Pastor. It wasn't like an email tag. You know, I tag everybody in the email, you know. It wasn't like that. He said to the church in this area. So what if we were the church? What if it was everybody? The church at Texas became the largest charity in Texas. The church at the United States became the biggest charity in the United States. It is so possible. Even the numbers show, man, it is possible just for one city to become the biggest. What if you did more cities? It is an extremely possible goal that we're aiming for. Something that we can do. Practically, how that would work is simply our members would log in their hours. We're developing the system how we're going to do that. We're developing the website. We're doing all these things. And our members would be able to log their hours and actually get counted for what they're already doing or what they start. And we would have different volunteer hours availability. So maybe it's once a month. Maybe I'm every week. Maybe there'll be different pledges you can do. But there's a simple way to log all those hours. And so as a group, together, our members would have donated the most in the United States. That is an achievable goal through this organization. And that's what we're really believing for. We're really believing big for this. You know, and so how we're going to do it, like I said, we're making our website. We're going to start talking to pastors and people we know and connections that we have. Like I said, it's interdenominational. To be a part of this does not mean, well, you have to be a Innovate Church. Not at all. You can do what you do. But this is going to be a good strategy to increase even the younger generations going to church. Because they're going to start to see, wow, young people like to make a difference. When attending their church means to actually make a difference in my community, guess what? They'll come because they want to make a difference. We're going to talk to volunteer organizations who are already working to become partners with them, to start counting the hours that are already happening. For charities, to nonprofits, different organizations, we're going to start connecting the dots because it's very important that we do that. And then even within our own church, we won't talk about it all tonight, but even Innovate Church, we want to develop a model that is going to be a new standard, a new model, a new way that they say, look at the way they're doing this. That's all about volunteering. It's all about serving. It's all about making a difference in the community. And they're making it easy. We're talking from, oh, I want to volunteer at this place. How do we make that happen? We connect all the dots for you. We already know all the phones. We have contacts. We have everything making it so easy for you to volunteer. We have a lot of things planned, even just for our church. It's our dream that our church becomes a model for how to do it different. Okay? According to this charity and according to our goals. Long-term goals, we want to be the largest charity in the state. The church at Texas, we want the church at Texas to be the largest charity or fund in Texas. Beyond that, we want to be the biggest charity in the U.S. And beyond that, this is, down the road. But we see the church in all the different countries being the biggest charity in their country. We see the church at, Greece. We see the church at England. We see the church at wherever becoming the biggest charity. And the most incredible thing about that would be it's volunteered, hands-on, served hours. Sharing and actually being the church. Actually being the church. And that's such a significant thing. Let me share a story. All right, let's go back a little ways to Rome. To Rome. The last emperor of Rome, his name is Julian, as you all know. Common knowledge. Julian. So Julian came a few after Nero. Nero's the famous guy who killed lots of the Christians in terrible, terrible ways. All right? Nero was the emperor of Rome. Christianity came to Rome. Nero said, I don't like Christianity. Let's just kill them all. Interesting strategy. So he did terrible, terrible things to the Christian, and he killed all of them. Well, not all of them, but he martyred so many of them. All right? He thought that's how I'll stop Christianity. Ironically, killing Christians makes them stronger. The movement increased, and he couldn't stop it. He's like, what the heck? And the church became stronger in Rome, even though he was killing everyone. So that didn't work. The last emperor of Rome, learning from the last emperor, last emperor of Rome, Julian, learning from Nero's mistakes, wanted to get rid of Christianity. That grew stronger because he killed him. So he said, I'm not going to kill the Christians. No. That makes them stronger somehow. So what I'm going to do is use social change to make life really hard for him. So in fact, what he did was he removed all the Christian schools. He removed all the teachers who wouldn't teach the pagan beliefs about creation. Interesting. The ones who didn't agree with, it was this God who made it, everything came out of a tree seed. I don't know. They wouldn't believe it. So if they taught Christian theology that God created everything and he was this and he was that, they removed them out of the schools. He took away their privileges. He made it really hard for the Christian to have church, to own property, to do all these things. And he never killed them. He said, if we do it like this, we'll snuff out Christianity. Interestingly, you see similar things happening today and what have been happening today, and getting Christianity out of the schools. In fact, he would go so far to make people and try to convince, this is the emperor of Rome talking back then, which had a lot of authority, convince people that this Christianity thing was myth. They wrote that. The disciples made it all up. It's not real. It's just the myth of man. Foolish people follow that. Does anything sound familiar? I mean, come on. That sounds super familiar to what's happening today. And yet, on his deathbed, famously his last words as they were reported, he called the Christians Galileans. He said in his deathbed, "O great Galilean, you have conquered Rome." Talking about Jesus. That was the emperor's last words. Great Galilean, you have conquered Rome. And how did he do that? And in letters to his pagan priests, which he was promoting in Rome to take over. In letters to the pagan priests, he said, we cannot stop the Christian, for they keep taking care of the poor. They keep taking care of not only their poor, but ours as well. And he told the priests they should be coming to us for taking care of them. But they go to them because they take care of them. To the pagan priests, he said, take notes on how they live and how they give and copy them. And then our pagan religion will have success like the Christian. What conquered Rome? What changed it in the face of even oppression and then trying to snuff it out? It was giving and helping those in need. You see, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore the church when they're the biggest charity in the world, in the United States, in your state. You can't ignore it when the Christians are the ones taking care of all the communities, poor people, hungry people, orphans, and the people in need. You can't ignore them. And it speaks louder than the grand services that you might have and all the Christians gathering in the same place. That's nice. But what speaks louder to the world? These guys are serious. That's what conquered Rome. And I'm telling you, it can bring a revival in the United States. That's what we're believing for. And from this, we want birth tons of nonprofits. We want to inspire many nonprofits, organizations, charities, schools, abroad, local, whatever. We want this to be the revival like the YMCA came out. All those things came out of it. We see that happening again. Let the Christians not just think about church buildings, but man, getting outside of the walls and really making a difference. Amen? That's what we're believing for. That's our goals. We're going to give you guys more details, like I said, of what practically in the website and all these things as it comes up and as we update you. You'll get the first to know. Continuing on after this, we're going to do a series of teachings that are the reason why. Why should I volunteer? Why do I need to volunteer? Why, as a believer, should I be going out into my city? And to be clear, this is going to be volunteering through local organizations already doing it. This isn't come volunteer at the church. This is no, go to the homeless shelter, go to the whatever your interest. For example, you know my love for kids and working with the kids at ACH. I'm going to go back. You see, go and help, go and start, go and do what's already being done. It makes no sense to me that homeless shelters, think about this, in the United States, the Christian homeless shelters should have empty shifts. That I receive emails saying, we need help because we have nobody to serve homeless people food in a Christian shelter when you're in Christian Texas that's so full of Christians. Does that make sense to anybody else? I was like, haha, good one. No, that's a real email, and I got it many times. We need help serving food. Well, where are the Christians at? You know what I mean? Like, come on. So that's what we're about. We're about getting actually out there. There shouldn't be an empty shift. The Christians got to show up. You can't ignore it when that happens. Amen?